father are very predictable and actually, labeled just like the mother. So the predictable phases of paternal transition. Number 1, enter parenthood with intentions of being an emotionally involved father. Then they confront reality, realizing the expectations are inconsistent with the realities of life with a newborn during the first few weeks. And this phase involves a lot of intense emotions. 3 is working to create the role of an involved father. And then 4th is reaping the rewards, which is the most significant being, I'm talking about the most significant being reciprocity from the infant, such as a smile. So this is where, those terms of the different definitions we talked about in the beginning and how do they apply. So, this would be a father looking at his infant, and whether he's talking to his infant or smiling at his infant and the infant smiles back. So it's responding appropriately. Engrossment is a definition. It's the father's absorption, preoccupation, and interest in the infant. And the role tends to be social play versus caretaking. And this could not be truer like in my family. So you all know we have a 6-year-old, and it's funny how I always say, my husband is the fun one and I take care of her. So we really have that role, that engrossment in our family, which is a very good thing. That's what works well for us. So anytime my daughter is sick or hungry or has injured herself, needs her bath, when she's tired, she wants me, she wants her mom, but when she wants to play, when it comes to doing homework, that is definitely my husband's role of the social play, and I am the caretaker. So that's kind of an example of how it's applied. And finally, often receive less interpersonal and professional support compared to mothers. So, when mom is pregnant, all of the focus tends to be around her, and then the baby's born, and all the focus tends to be around the baby. And there's just not as much focus around the father and how he's doing as there is compared to the mothers. This is a sweet little picture of a father absorbed and looking at his new baby. The adjustment for the new couple takes a lot of time, and there can be challenges after childbirth. So some things that they can do is to schedule dates away from the infant. So, I know after our daughter was born, we had to schedule dates, but the whole time we were on our date, all we could think about was getting back home. But even if it's just, going out to eat without the baby for an hour or hour and a half, and all you do is talk about the baby, you've taken the time to focus on your relationship, what you're enjoying about your new baby and what's going well, and then, you can't wait to get home. But just having alone time as a couple is very important. As far as resuming sexual intimacy, your book talked about that you can resume sexual intercourse 2 to 4 weeks after birth, so essentially after the episiotomy is healed. Some places you'll read 6 weeks, but 6 weeks is when the typical follow-up appointment is. That's why it's important that moms go home on some type of birth control prior to their 6-week appointment, because some couples don't wait, 6 weeks to resume sexual intimacy. And so you hope that they don't show up at their 6-week appointment pregnant, because, their body really hasn't had the time that it needs to recover and heal. So, but they can resume sexual intercourse 2 to 4 weeks after birth when the episiotomy, lacerations, and everybody is comfortable resuming that. Infant parent adjustments. So these are behavioral characteristics of the infant and how they influence the parenting behaviors. So rhythm is the first one, and this is how parents interact with their infant during the infant alert state. An example would be the in-face position, and that's what you're seeing in this picture here. You want to, another example would be reserving stimulation. If a mother is breastfeeding or even if a baby is bottle feeding, you want to reserve stimulation for when the infant is not sucking. So when newborn babies have to, they have to learn to eat, whether they're breastfeeding or bottle feeding. It's a natural behavior, but also a learned behavior. So you don't want to be stimulating, talking to the baby a lot, stimulating when they're trying to eat. You want to wait until they're done eating. So again, that rhythm, you're responding to your infant when it's appropriate. Next is behavioral repertoire, and this is when behaviors to facilitate the interaction. Examples are an infant gazing, vocalizing, and facial expressions. Infant looking away when they're overstimulated. In adults, infantile's speech. And so this isn't baby talk, so that's infantilize. So this is when adults slow their speech. They can be loud and rhythmic. It's not, baby talk, but this is a very, very purposeful way of communicating with a baby. So these are behaviors that facilitate interaction with their infant. And the last one is the responsiveness. So this is a response occurs specific to stimulus. So an example would be an infant smiles when they're in this in-face position, and the parent smiles back, or it could be vice versa. It could be the parent smiles and the infant smiles back. So they're responding to each other.